But it was just like this Xanax, whenever I was 15, has evolved into, I want to do whatever it takes to get my head to change. And I would do whatever it took.
You're tuned in to The Local Lens, the podcast where we go inside our community's experience with the drug epidemic.
Maybe 2 months after getting out, I used IV methamphetamines. And instantly, almost, I would hallucinate. There would be, in that realm, we would call it, in the streets we'd call it the grass people, or the feds, or in the TVs, and there's cameras everywhere, it had a complete hold on me, because at first I told you all I was on opiates and marijuana, and it was a different kind of animal. And then I got into this major league type, bull by the horns. I grab onto something that can't, won't let go of me. And and then I used IV drugs, and it went downhill from there.
Our guest on this week's episode of The Local Lens is a Powell County native, Will Arvin. And he comes on the show this week to share his story of his own drug use and how he started to get into recovery. He shares some very meaningful stuff to us. It gives us some insight in what is important to people about recovery, what are some of the big pieces of recovery. This is even an extended episode. We usually keep these episodes to under 30 minutes, but I really didn't want to cut any of this guy's episode because I've not seen this guy since I was 11 or 12 years old, when he was a Powell County Pirate basketball player and was running the kids' youth camp. But anyways, now he is working as a peer support specialist for ARC, which is a huge regional recovery center. It's a company that runs several recovery centers, and we actually had this interview up in Owsley County at their Carpenter's Village location. Well, anyways, we've got a crazy interview in store for you guys today. He's got an incredible story, so let's go on and get into it. I'm your host, Nate Brooks, and you are tuned in to The Local Lens. These are our people using our voices, telling our stories, because no one sees it like we do.
So this is, it's called Carpenter's Village.
Okay.
And we have a couple different phases here, and we have a great program, man. It's called Carpenter's Village, but it's through ARC, and I come up through here, and it's like, being at home. I felt comfortable. I was around the mountains. Owsley County is just one county away from Powell County, and it was just it just felt like home, you know what I mean? And the staff here just they literally do love you back to life here. And
and you're on staff here now?
Yes.
So
yeah.
What is your job here now?
I'm a peer support specialist.
Okay, nice. How long have you been doing that here?
2 months.
2 months.
Right around 2 months.
Nice. You liking it?
I love it, man.
Good.
Love it.
Good to hear.
So I get to be that instant shot of hope. Whenever I first came into treatment, I seen, this big redneck, talking about Jesus covered in prison tattoos, and then I knew if he could do it, I could definitely do it. So it's an instant knowing that they, even though we couldn't really put on each other's shoes and walk in it, but they know that I've been where they've been, from the vocabulary that I use, and the street vocabulary, and also being in prison, the vocabulary that you pick in there. So them instantly being able to open up. So the peer support specialist, me being able to be vulnerable and sharing some of my stories, which now I've done it for so long that it doesn't really affect me. I'm not shy about my story today. So these guys that are just coming in, it really helps them to open up and be able to talk about stuff that they've been buried down deep forever.
Mm-hmm. So you definitely see how it helped you with your recovery. So now you're doing that for other people. Is that any kind of an emotional experience for you now to do that for other people, or what does that feel like for you now on the other end? It's larger in life to be able to be here. And you're preaching now.
Yeah, I've been called to preach.
Yeah.
So I've stepped into the calling. And it's for real. It really is remarkable because I was completely dead set on being who I was. I did not care what everybody in the community thought about me. And, I was that kid that, played ball and everybody knew, he was a good old boy if he'd just get off them drugs. He's got all the potential in the world. Well, I don't have potential anymore. I've stepped into it. Mm-hmm. So the potential's out the window. I've already stepped into it, and I'm doing exactly what God wants me to do and what I've been called to do. Like, as much as a mess that I've made out of my life, He turned it to a message, and I'm not going to hush about it. I can't. I really can't. I can't not tell somebody about it.
Well, it looks like he made it to the right place. Let's get into this story now. You played high school sports.
Yeah.
When did you start using any drugs?
I remember there was this little cutaway that actually cuts back up onto Furnace Mountain right there. It's called Pot Hill. And everybody knows this spot. You'd get after school and you'd go burn one. You know what I mean? Like, that was the spot. And there was this one day, man, there was a buddy of mine that had a Xanax. And I was I'd actually been held back a year, so I was, a sophomore driving. And
which makes you the king.
Oh, dude. So, so he had a Xanax, man, and I remember doing it. And it was like it done something to me. You know what I mean? Like, it just absolutely made that whole entire night exquisite. Like, it was off the chain that night after I'd done that. So it started out just maybe a weekend thing. We would smoke every day. So that was probably, I was 15 and a half or something like that whenever I very first done a pill, but I was probably 14 whenever we started smoking. And I say we, and if they do listen to the podcast here, man, they'll know exactly who I'm talking about. But it was, 13 or 14 I started smoking, and it went from a weekend thing, and it was a couple of weeks later, it was, every day, and it just went on from there. Went on from there. And then the pill thing would have been like, every other weekend. And it was just, it wasn't a cool thing to do. It wasn't like I was, with my good buddies. It was just, it was a way to escape.
And he also brings up a very common critique of living in Powell County. There's just not that much to do.
What are you going to do? Ride around Dairy Queen until you out of gas? or McDonald's, and go to the Loop until you run out of gas? Or, there just wasn't nothing to do. And, what? I would go play ball, and after I started doing this, it was like it made everything, like enhanced everything. Like, I loved playing ball while I was high. And
were you good when you were playing high?
Some of it I don't remember. Some of it I don't remember. One of the best games I ever had, I don't even remember it. I was on pain pills, and I was completely gone. I remember I was 17, and I'd done 2 perk 30s before I played, and I think I scored 24 points and had 12 rebounds.
That is a pretty good game, and this guy was really into playing basketball, but the drugs did end up getting in the way of that. You mentioned earlier that you ended up not finishing high school when you were there. Did you start your senior year?
Yeah, I started off there my senior year, and then that would have been 2009, and I was exposed. Somebody told him that I was using hard drugs. Coach Hall was our coach then. He was going to drug test me, and I was like, look, you're not going to get none of my urine. I'm just going to move. So my dad lives in Berea, and I went to Berea Independent and played my last senior year, almost all of it. So It was met an older chick down there that, you know, gave me a car and like was okay with me doing what I was doing, and I moved in with her, and so I missed practice before a game. The day before a game, I missed that practice, and that's like a no. Like, you're not playing in that game, and it was a big district game against Model. And I go over to the game, you know, I'm driving my car, I'm real cool, like, and I got my bag, and I'm walking across there. Coach Smallwood was his name, and he was like, I don't even know why you showed up, because you're not going to get to play. You can take stats if you want to. And I made a big, huge deal about it, ripped my jersey off, and just walked off, and never played ball again after that. So, I moved back to Powell County for a couple weeks and was just engulfed in using pills and, you know, smoking weed, and was like just trying to run.
Yeah.
Just run from all this trouble, and was trying to get to where I could play, you know what I mean? Because it was right dead in the middle. I had 3 months left in school, so it was right in the middle of ball season right there.
Yeah.
And they were like, no way, you know what I mean? I barely got to play at Berea. I barely got transferred, so. But, I ended up quitting.
Is there anything that could have been done then that would have, like, helped you stay in school then? Like, looking back at all?
I want to say yeah, but I would probably say that I was already too far into it, because while I was there, if I didn't have it, I moved to Berea. Nobody knew my face, nobody knew who I was, and this is around about the time I was talking about how I was so much bigger than everybody. I could use my size to my advantage, or my addiction could use my size to its advantage, and I just transformed into this big, you know, bully, you know, and would rob drug dealers, and as a high schooler, like, I'm a senior in high school, and would kick doors in, would go into drug dealers' house, and knowing, and this is my thought pattern at that point in time, you know, they didn't know my face, so I didn't have to cover my face up, for one, and for two, I'm stealing nothing but drugs. What are you going to do, call the cops on me and tell them that I stole your Xanaxes? You know what I mean? So I figured by that time when I quit, I was already not just in, you know, addiction, I was into the lifestyle. I would peddle dope after I'd left school. I was, you know, Berea's kind of like the city, and Richmond's right there. So after I was there for, you know, a couple of years, I got plugged in with some of the wrong people. And I would pedal back and forth, which would mean, you know, transporting, however you want to put it. Marijuana, it started off. So not huge amounts of marijuana, but, you know, enough that I would have gotten in trouble if I would have got caught. So back and forth from the city to the country. And then it would unfold into being, you know, pills. Then I would peddle pills. And then while I was in Berea, one time I'll never forget it, the first time I ever done methamphetamines. This guy's like, you know, I'm not going to give you none, Will, because it will change you for the rest of your life. I'm like, look, bro, if you don't give it to me, somebody else will. You know what I mean? If you don't want this money or not, you know, I'm going to go somewhere else and do it. So I hadn't used IV drugs yet. I hadn't shot up yet. And I remember smoking this methamphetamine for the first time, and I was like, man, this is it, you know. I would, and somehow through all this, I would landscape. I had a landscaping job, so could that didn't drug test me, and like I would. It's bad to say, but I would sell drugs, you know, off my mower, literally at, you know, residential houses or commercial houses. Like I mowed Hamburg Walmart for numerous years, Wood Hill, the Climax Center there, the movie place. Like we mowed that. Like we had a lot of big. Actually, the EKU the state police post right there. The training camp, I mowed that. Got blitzed the whole time I was out there. They was out there like doing their their spiel, and I'm over on my mower, tucked in behind a little bluff, just getting blown away while the police are over there training and doing their thing.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, so it unfolded. Like I said, I got introduced to methamphetamine, and I would work longer, wouldn't get tired at first, and at first.
When did that change?
It felt as if it was adding to you at first. So, I don't know, I was in Powell County, staying with my dad in Clay City, and I went to go into a home to rob it, and it was probably would have been one of the worst mistakes of my life. I could have died that day. There was somebody there, and I'd been up for 3 weeks probably on Xanaxes and methamphetamine. I had a beard down to here, hair out to here, and like it's totally changed who I was. Like I'm not saying that I was always this well-groomed young man by no means, but I always had a haircut, and I was always, but I had like this mini fro going on and this huge beard, and I got to go in this window, man, in this lady's home. And so that is where the methamphetamine had led me to. After the drugs ran out and there was no more peddling, and I couldn't get any money, I done whatever it took to get dope or get something to trade for the dope. So I ended up getting convicted. I took 8 years, and I ended up serving 56 months on this 8, and didn't ever have handcuffs on. Never. I didn't get in trouble until I got in trouble for that, and it was a good one.
Yeah.
It was a good one. I remember coming into jail, and I was like, it wasn't that big a deal. I didn't take nothing. You know what I mean? I didn't get away with nothing. And the older, guys that were in there was like, look, man, you might as well get settled in, because it is a big deal. And sure enough, it was. So I hadn't got to the point then to where I was getting schizoed out and hallucinating, being in a meth psychosis.
This psychosis is going to come up later, but this is one of the first interviews I've done where somebody has directly talked about that kind of mental illness. We've heard several times on the show that mental illness is a big part of addiction, but this is one of the clear examples, one of the most clear examples I've ever heard personally. So let's get back into the story.
Altogether, I was locked up about 4.5 years, and done every program they had to offer in there: MRT, inside outside dads they call it, Pathfinders, anger management. And
is that like because you were into the programs, or were you just trying to get your sentence shortened?
Yeah, it knocks time off every time you do
it. It worked to some degree.
Yeah. But now that where I'm at now, and I look back, every single time that I would listen to somebody reading out these books or whatever you have, it was another step to get me where I'm at today. Like it wasn't lost time. Like it got me to where I'm at today. So
yeah. And when you were doing it, did you, like when you were in all these different programs, did you think they were helping you at all when you were in them?
It was like I was downloading all this information, didn't know how to apply it.
That's fair. Yeah.
I had no understanding of how to go from being caged up to throwing you out into the world and being like, yeah, there you go, bud. Let's see what you can do with it. We got you a tool belt full of tools. We're not going to show you how to use them, but we're going to see what you can do.
This transition period between being in jail or prison and getting back into the real world and getting back on your feet is one of the most notoriously hard things to do. It's a problem that we are very well aware of. And to put it bluntly, one of the big reasons why we wanted to interview Will specifically was because the way that he transitioned is a very replicable thing, and it's something that a lot of people in our community can learn from and apply that and be able to help out a lot more people with their recoveries. How did you do with that when you first got out?
Transitioning. I'd actually had, I worked at Red Hour for about 3 months here in Clay City. He gave me a chance. He didn't have to, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He gave me a chance, and, you know, I'm forever grateful for that, man.
And he just hints on it in this episode, but our next episode is going to dive into this idea of employment and it being a true foundation of recovery.
And at that time, I didn't understand what God was doing, but I mean, he'd be blaring, you know, worship music in there, and I didn't even know what worship music was. And like, he's, you know, Jesus.
Did you like it then?
Jesus freaks, you know what I mean? That's what I would call everybody, you know, like, these people, they're cool, but, you know, they're going to give me a chance, you know, so, you know, it was awesome. I was there for about 3 months, and I got to work with, you know, some really great people that was actually in drug court at that time. And they was really trying to do their recovery thing, and it still was like a foreign language to me. Mm-hmm. And because I had this knowledge that I got from the inside, which, you know, a lot of times there was nothing there anyway to tempt somebody to use anyway. So you're in this controlled environment to going to where it was free reign, back to where I used to run wild. And so it was about 3 months, and I was at the point where I was on this boxing program, and it didn't work out because I didn't have them. Or after a while, I started trading them for methamphetamine again. And super long story short, right in there between that, man, I ended up being at a well-known, you know, safe using, you know, spot. Yeah, mm-hmm. Some people call it a trap house. This wasn't a trap house. This was just somebody's house that, you know, used, and it was okay.
Like under control kind of environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was that big turning point. You know what I mean? So, you know, there was like some of Powell County's finest. Like some of the worst was at this trailer. And I was in the back room. I'll never forget this, man. I had a BM. My stomach was hurting, and I didn't want to use it on that side of the trailer. So I'm walking, you know, and there's people like dead bodies laying around everywhere. It felt like a lot of my so-called buddies, looked like they might have been overdosed. So I'm stepping over them and rolling them over on their side and making sure they're not going to throw up and kill themselves. And I get to the bathroom on the other side. Like I said, I didn't want to stink the other side of the trailer up. You know, you can't make this stuff up. Yeah. You know, the only reason why is because I was having sexual relations with the chick that owned the trailer. So, and I had, you know, cargo shorts on with no underwear and a beater. And I walked on the other side of this trailer, you know, and I was completely gone. I'd used that night and was up all night. I did not use what they use. They used, you know, heroin and would mix it with it. And I was over that whole phase. Like, it didn't do nothing for me. Pills didn't do nothing for me no more. I wanted to be up. So I was the only one up in the trailer. Anyway, I'm in this psychosis of thing. I'm going through my settings on my phone while I'm sitting there, and I've been hearing like 7 different voices in my head that night. Some of them, one of them was my ex, and my father's voice, and the other ones was total random voices in my head. Didn't know who they were, and they was telling me to do, like, not to kill myself or anything, but put myself in harm's way. And at this point, I'd been in this for a while, where I would say, you know, leave me alone. You know what I mean? Not out loud in an audible voice or anything, but I would think back to whatever voices are in my head. And I would say, you can't hurt me, you can't touch me, go on somewhere, go bug somebody else. And I was going through these settings on my phone and thought somebody had my phone hacked and I was going to find it, you know what I mean? All this and that. And I'm going there and I hear this voice. And it said, he said, go. And it was different from all the other voices that I've ever heard. And like I said, I was to the point where I would talk back verbally sometimes, and I would think back, and I thought back to this voice, who do you think you're talking to? I'm big honky. I'm 6'5", 225 pounds. You can't hurt me. I'm sitting there again, and this voice says, run, go. And like I said, in my physical realm, there was nothing that I was scared of. So my spirit man within me, there was something within me that made me get up out of this trailer. And I was, like I said earlier, I'd played ball my whole life. I'm a big boy, but I got wheels on me. You know what I mean? I was quick for a big guy. I ran a 4.7 in a 40.
It's quick.
At 240. I was 240 pounds then in high school, so I was a little bit lighter, strung out. I don't know how fast I was going, but anyway, I ran out of this trailer. Not because I was scared in the physical realm, but there was something inside of me that literally scared the bejeebies out of me. I throw the phone and take off out of this trailer, man, and I'm hitting bars like I'm scarred up, hit a culvert, and I'm barefooted, hit a culvert, split my toenail all the way to the bottom, scared to death. I see this garage. I don't have no shoes on. I had a beater on, and walked in, grabbed a pair of muck boots and a straw hat. And the Clay City Times, I appreciate them for broadcasting that on the front page whenever I got caught. They put me right on the front page and it said "Gone Country." Me sitting, completely ill in my disease, and they broadcast it like it was, this big, huge bust or something. Completely in mass psychosis.
And then another guy shows up to help, and we've chosen not to tell his name on the show, so we've taken out his name. But this guy comes up offering to help, and he says,
Will, what are you doing, man? I made up this big long story. I was looking for my dog or something, but still had no thought about this voice that was different than the other ones. He took me to jail. They arrested me for third-degree burglary for going in and getting this straw hat, and it was a Stetson straw hat. It was a nice one. And these muck boots because I was barefooted. Not because I was in there trying to vandalize anything. Yeah. I was hurt. I was full of bras, but so I went to jail. And when you're in jail, I don't know why we do this, but we want to watch the news. And they're watching the news, and it comes across the news that there was a 6-hour stand-up in Clay City. And I raise up and I look at this TV, and it's exactly where I was at. The same people that I was running with, the guys that I stepped over, had the lady that I was seeing, if that's what you want to say, her husband comes home from across the road. And this man comes home thinking that his wife has been held hostage by these goons. Little did I know at that point in time, I thought I'd got away from a big charge, being convicted felon with a firearm. They backed this man out of his own house. He called the law, 6-hour stand-up. So I see it. And little did I know then that the turning point was whenever I heard God's voice for the first time. It was a game changer for me. So I could have easily got, a lot of time for being there, and I would have been right in the middle of all that. And he saved me, and I didn't realize it then. I thought really I'd got away with I got out of trouble right there. I still didn't realize what that voice was, even to that point when I seen that on the news. 3 or 4 days later, these ladies roll up, and they were like, "Will, we're from," they might have been from Spark, but they asked me about addiction recovery care and said, "We know there's this faith-based rehab, and we really think that if you really honestly give it a try, that you'd be able to help a lot of people." At first, I really didn't realize what was going on, that God had his hand over the whole entire thing, that he literally plucked me out of the darkness that day whenever I heard his voice. So I was like, yeah, see what it'll do. You're going to let me out of jail, let's go. The court ordered me to do up until phase 3. 2 weeks after I was here, there was a center. It was in Jackson County. It was in Annville, and it was called Lincoln Oaks. And I pulled up there. My mama dropped me off again. Lord bless my mama. I pulled up. It was like these guys was waiting on me, Will, big Will, like they known me forever. Hugged me up, me a shell of the man that I am today. And done the intake process, and I was like, man, these guys have got to be high or something, because they're happy to see me. There's something going on. There's something in the water up here. I don't know what it is. And like I said, I really didn't understand that I'd had an encounter with God still up to this point.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks later, they're like, y'all load up. We're going to go to church. And we went to this Pentecostal church, and I was raised up in a real quiet setting church, like real quiet.
Those Pentecostal ones will knock you off your feet then.
I was like, I roll into this church, and they're like partying. Mm-hmm. I'm being for real. The lights are flashing. Like, there's this lady playing on the piano, like Ray Charles. Like, I mean, it was phenomenal. I was like, these people are getting down. I mean, it for real. It felt like I was at a party. And I'll never forget it. There was, staff and interns there with us, and we were sitting in the very front row of this church, this Pentecostal church, where they just killing it. I mean, worship music, never heard worship music. And all the other guys had their hands up, praising and worshiping. I couldn't have told you anything about it at that point in time. And I don't know if it was an angel. I can't even remember the guy's face. If it was a guy, I couldn't even tell you who it was, but he walked up to me. Could have been a member from that church. He walked up to me and he said, why don't you just give it a try? Walked off. Still this day, I don't know who that was, but I did. I threw my hands up, and it was about 30 seconds later, I had my face buried in the altar. And turned my life over to the Lord that day, and I said, I've tried everything else. Come into my heart and make me new. And that was the big game changer, man.
Hey, cheers to it, man.
Thanks. I would like to share a little bit about, for the parents out there that still have brothers or sisters, mom and dads, sons or daughters that are still suffering from addiction. Never lose hope. Don't give up. I promise you that there is a way out. I'm an answered prayer. I'm literally a miracle sitting here today. Don't give up on them. Don't give up.
Well, thank you guys for sticking with us through the whole episode. There are a lot of things that you can take away from this conversation as lessons, but one of the biggest things is how important it was in his story to have somebody take a chance on Will and give him a job, invite him into an environment where he was in control of his own destiny a bit more, an environment that was supportive for recovery. It was one that was encouraging him to be better. So this employment opportunity, even though it only lasted for 3 months for him, it started planting some of those big seeds that took a long time for them to start really growing in his recovery. Well, our next episode is going to be diving into much more of this idea of employment being essential to recovery. So please come back for that one. We're going to hear a bit more from Will Arvin himself, as well as Brandon Hill, who is another guy from ARC. So be sure you come back and hear that next episode. Thank you guys for tuning into this, and also a huge thanks to Will Arvin for being brave enough to share this story. It really is so good for people to be able to hear that insight from somebody who has the life experience. I would also like to thank WSKV for broadcasting our show, and the Powell County Health Department and Kentucky Rio for funding it. You've been tuned in to The Local Lens. I'm your host, Nate Brooks, and I'm going to ask you if you have enjoyed what you've heard today, or if you think it's important, please share it. Tell your friends about it. These are our people using our voices, telling our stories, because no one sees it like we do.